I just realized I put all these books on my desk and you can't even see them. Good job, Marissa. 2023 has by far been the biggest reading year of my life. And it all started when I got jealous that I gave my boyfriend an audiobook subscription and I wanted one myself. So I got one. And those 2 hours I spent every day, Monday to Friday, driving to and from work was so much more enjoyable and honestly opened my eyes to so many incredible stories. I started to physically read books again when I wanted to read Fourth Wing. And I was informed that the audiobook version isn't great and sounds like the narrator has a cold for about the first 10 chapters or so. So I didn't want to put myself through that. So I decided to actually pick it up and physically read it. And the rest is history. And I can definitely say I am a reader. I'm a reader and I'm so happy about that. So here are all the 33 books that I read in 2023. So after I watched the first season of The Summer I Turned Pretty, I really wanted to actually listen to the books as well. I thought it would be a nice introduction into audiobooks. So that's what I did. I listened to all 3 of them. Summer I Turned Pretty, It's Not Summer Without You, and We'll Always Have Summer. And I really enjoyed it. I will say, I think the show is a lot better. It does a lot better job of enhancing the characters. It really elevates the story. And I was noticing that they put a lot in the show that wasn't actually in the book. When you actually listen to the book, there's a lot of things missing. And I feel like it's mainly focused around the romance between Belly and Jeremiah and Conrad, that kind of love triangle there. It was a great introduction into audiobooks as it's actually narrated by Lola Tung, who plays Belly in the show. And it was just familiar. Now, I've had the Mortal Instruments series sitting on my bookshelf for years. I only read the first 3 books before I put it down, and I honestly don't really remember why, but that's what ended up happening. And I really wanted to revisit the series because I would say I was a Shadowhunter fan. Watched the movie, I watched the show, I really liked it, but obviously I really wanted to revisit the original world, and I really, really enjoyed the series. And the funny thing is, you think the logical thing for me to do would be to actually just read the books because I have the books, but no, I decided to listen to the audiobooks instead because I was driving to and from work, and it just made more sense to be more time efficient, I guess. Now I will say the audiobook narration isn't the best, but it is fine enough. They do change a lot of voice actors throughout the entire series, so you're not going to get the same person throughout, but that was okay, and I really enjoyed the story. I will say there's a few things about the series that is a little strange in terms of certain character motives and all, but overall, I guess if you overlook it, the series is actually pretty fun, and I'm very keen to read the Infernal Devices series. I've heard that that's a favorite for a lot of people, and it's kind of like one of the original romantasy type stories. I think it has a love triangle. I'm very, very keen to actually read that one as well. So yeah, if you never read the Mortal Instruments series, I do recommend it. I recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and I think it took me about 2 to 3 months to read or to listen to all of these, and it was a good time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, I was deciding what books I wanted to listen to next after I finished the Mortal Instruments. My boyfriend was always talking about the Percy Jackson series, and I never read them growing up, and it kind of intrigued me, with Greek mythology and all, and I decided to. I actually listened to them. I did not read them. I wanted these covers though. So I ended up listening to the entire Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. Loved it. I loved it so much. It is so, so fun. It's a great adventure following Percy, Annabeth, and Grover, and honestly, the build up for the entire series is really, really good. The last book, The Last Olympian, an amazing ending. One of my favorite endings to a series. It starts off really intense. It ends really intense. There's so many moments where you're just cheering for the characters, and I absolutely loved it. I think the Titan's Curse was also a favorite of mine in the series. I actually just really loved the introduction of the Countess of Artemis, and it was so fun. This one made me tear up a bit as well, but really, really great books. I think what's so special about this series is the fact that, even though most people read this when they were about 12, around the same age Percy is and kind of grew up with the books, you can still revisit them when you're in your mid-20s. And that's exactly what I did, and I'm so happy I did. I really, really loved it. I'm currently watching the show at the moment as well, and I'm enjoying it, and I think it's a fun adaptation. I understand that the fact that he starts off 12 can be a little off-putting for some people because sometimes they're like, oh, it's too young, but I think that's the beauty of it as well. Harry Potter starts off around that age as well, and a lot of people really love that series. You're getting a similar experience when you're reading Percy Jackson. I feel like there's a lot of similarities between the two series, similar tropes that happen, but I really love Percy as a main character. I think he's really fun, he's funny, and he's just unhinged. There's a lot of things he does in these books that you're just like, oh, okay, that was okay, that's happening. Or just some things that he says. It's so fun. I really recommend them. The audiobook versions are actually really, really good as well. The narrator does a really good job depicting the characters, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then after I finished Percy Jackson and the Olympians, I continued on to the Heroes of Olympus series. Now, I really, really love this series as well. I think all of them except for the last book, The Blood of Olympus. It wasn't my favorite ending to the series. I still think it's worth reading the rest of them though. This one I just feel like is a little bit disappointing, but the rest of the books, so good. We get introduced to new characters in both The Lost Hero and Sun and Neptune, and it's really fun to see the dynamic of the two different groups. And then in Mark of Athena, we see everyone brought together. And this was my favorite book out of the entire series, and I absolutely love it. I love like when the gang's together and they're going on a quest. It's a lot of fun. The ending of this is so good, and it made me so excited just to jump into House of Hades. I will say, I listened to these on Audible, and the narration up until House of Hades is really good. When it gets to House of Hades, they swap narrators. I don't know why, but it wasn't good. And I was a bit sad by that because it really just took me out. You know, the voices weren't the same, and just the pronunciation for some things as well were different. And I was sad because I thought the narrator did a really, really good job with the first 3 books of the series, so I don't understand what happened there. But yeah, still worth it. I really recommend reading these or listening to them. Probably read them, but yeah, love the series. Following that, I also read Percy Jackson and the Chalice of the Gods. I'm going to put an image here because my copy is currently at my boyfriend's house. And I love this. It was just classic, bringing back the original trio for another adventure. I think it's going to be a trilogy, and so excited. It was a really, really fun book. It literally just felt like reading The Lightning Thief all over again. Now, I've been hearing a lot of hype about the Heartstopper series, and honestly, I watched the show before I read the graphic novels. I love the show. I thought it was so cute. It was so heartwarming. It was just one of those like feel-good shows, and I really wanted to see what happened next. So I got the graphic novels, read them all, love them all. I will say once it gets to the 3rd volume, there tends to be some darker, more trigger warning type of things that happen in the 3rd book. I recommend just checking it out and see what it is. But I highly recommend them. They're so fun. Like, honestly, like I don't really read a lot of graphic novels or manga. These were really, really fun. I really enjoyed these. You can easily read one of these in a day, or you probably the entire series if you really wanted to. And then I didn't want the story to end, so I picked up the 2 novellas, This Winter and Nick and Charlie, and I read these before I read the latest volume that came out for Heartstopper. I think I've read This Winter first and then Nick and Charlie, but they're cute. They just expand on the story a little bit more. This Winter is like the holiday season type novella, and Nick and Charlie is a bit more about the dramas that they face with Nick leaving to go to university. Now, after I finished the Heroes of Olympus series, I was wondering what could I listen to next? Like, what series did I want to listen to next? And I haven't read the entire Harry Potter series. I've only read, like physically read the first 3 books, and I don't know why. I guess, you know, back then I wasn't in a reading area, I wasn't a reader, I wasn't in that mindset. So I just wasn't interested, and honestly, I wish I was. Like, I wish I read these growing up, same as like Percy Jackson and Harry Potter. Like, I wish I read both these series growing up, but I didn't, so I'm reading them now. I'm catching up. But I've actually been listening to them on Audible, and I have been enjoying it so much. Stephen Fry's narration is just so good. Really recommend. If you've read them, if you haven't read them, the audiobook version is really good. It's really fun, and I think because I'm already kind of familiar with the story, I think choosing to listen to it was a good idea, because obviously there's other books that I want to physically read, and the Harry Potter series is one that, you know, if you zone out for a little bit, like to me it doesn't really matter that much because I kind of know the premise of like what's happening. It's just the nitty gritty details, I guess. But I really recommend listening to them. They're so great, and it just feels so magical to be in that world again. I just finished Goblet of Fire, so I got 3 more books to go, and yeah, it's been great. Now, the book that prompted me to start reading physical books again was Fourth Wing. And I'm so glad I read this. I really loved it. It was the perfect, you know, fantasy romance, romantasy, if you will. And this is exactly what I wanted to read, and I'm so glad I did. I do really love the characters. This book made me cry. I'm sure you know why, but I really love the setting of the War College, the dragons, the magic system that they have, even though I feel like I need like a little chart just to keep track of who's dragons who and what signet everyone has, because that part can get a little bit confusing. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. This did take me a long time to read. It took me about 6 weeks just because I hadn't like read a physical book in a long time. So I was definitely taking my time, but I really, really enjoyed it. I loved it. And then obviously I had to read Iron Flame, and this was like a scavenger hunt to get, but I got a copy and I was so excited. I feel like Iron Flame felt a little bit more like a high fantasy. There was a lot more world building, a lot more, I guess, political intrigue, like not fully, but it had a bit more of that. And you know, I enjoyed it. I think this was more of like a 4-star, whereas Fourth Wing was a 5-star for me. I still really enjoyed Iron Flame, and I'm really hoping Rebecca Yarros takes her time with the 3rd book, because I'm really interested to see where the story goes. Like certain things that happen in this book, it's really, really interesting, and like there's no other way to describe it. It's just very interesting. The way it ends as well is a bit of a shock, and I really want to see where she takes that story. Side note as well, I'm listening to the graphic audio for Fourth Wing, like the part 1 that just got released, and it's so interesting like going back, listening to it and knowing what you know about Xaden and other characters from Iron Flame, and just listening to it again, and you're like picking up on a few little things, and you're just like, I wonder if this is because like this of this thing or this thing, and I don't know, it's just kind of fun to like theorize like that. But yeah, I mean, if you like fantasy, if you like romance, if you like school settings, I recommend. It's fun, stakes are high, and you know, they're fun reads. I recommend. Now I want to try out some contemporary romances, you know, kind of just to break up the fantasy that I've been reading or listening to, that kind of thing. So I got Icebreaker and Wildfire. I really love these. I think I liked Icebreaker more than Wildfire, but you know, both are really, really fun. Both are very spicy, so just keep in mind if you do want to read that. Fun story, when I actually bought this, I was at the bookshop with my boyfriend who also plays ice hockey, and he saw that I picked it up and he just gave me a look like, But yeah, no, I recommend them if you're into that kind of thing. So they're fun, they're cute. Yeah, I enjoyed them. Now on to my favorite book of the year, Divine Rivals. I love this book so much. This is my Roman Empire. I think it is so beautifully written. The romance in this is so sweet and so lovely. There's such high stakes as well in this book. So it's not like just a happy-go-lucky type romance book. No, the stakes are high. You know, it takes place in a war setting. It's got magical elements around. It's got love letters. And the characters, I absolutely love the characters so much. They have this, you know, opposite thing about them. You know, like Roman is quite wealthy, Iris is quite poor, and there's a bit of conflict in there surrounding family. But yeah, it's mainly about the love story between the two. It's kind of like a rivals to lovers. I always recommend people to read this if you like that type of book. It's YA. It's really easy to read as well. I feel like the world in it isn't super complicated. There's like a war going on between gods and people are enlisting. Iris's plot in the story is that she wants to go find her brother that has kind of disappeared from the front lines. So she becomes a war correspondent. And I will say the story just gets better and better. Highly recommend. I'm currently reading Ruthless Vows. I don't know if I'll finish it by the time this video goes up. I'm already loving it and I'm just so excited to be in that world again. I ended up doing a reread of Divine Rivals and I listened to the audiobook version. The audiobook version is really, really good as well. So if you don't want to read it, I recommend listening to it. They've got 2 narrators, one for Roman, one for Iris, and it's great. So really recommend. I had my first taste of dark academia with A Study in Drowning and I really enjoyed this. This was a YA. I think I went into it thinking it was going to be a little bit more on the fantasy side. It's not really. It's a bit more like folklore fairy tale, but dark. But I think it was pretty good. Like I thought the beginning was a little bit slow, but I think it's just because it's meant to be eerie. It's meant to have that build up, which it definitely does. I feel like the last quarter of the book picks up a lot. It's about uncovering a mystery about like Effie's favorite author, and it's really interesting to kind of like work through the mystery with them. You're discovering it at the same time they are, and the ending is pretty cool. It's very intense. It's got a little bit of romance in it, which is always nice. I really enjoyed this. This was like 4 out of 5 for me, and yeah. And my last book of the year, which I technically finished in January of 2024, but I'm gonna say it's part of December because I read most of it in December, so that's okay. Powerless. I love this book. This was so much fun. Like you could see all the tabs I made. This is to do with the banter between the main characters. That's how much there is. But it is so much fun. It's such a fast-paced book. I feel like if you like Hunger Games, you like this. It's got that trial element to it, which is fun. I think the first trial is a bit more like the Hunger Games. It's a lot of fun. I really love the characters. You know, there's balls, there's fighting, there's trials, there's enemies to lovers type thing. I already pre-ordered Reckless because I absolutely love this. I'm so excited to see where the story takes all the characters, and yeah, I really recommend this one. It's a lot of fun. And that's all the 33 books I read and listened to in 2023. And I'm so excited to see what 2024 has in store. I do have a lot of books on my shelf that I obviously need to get to and I need to read. My TBR list is growing, but I'm really excited to dive into those. So if you want to see more videos like this, I make content about books and games and setup. They're my passions, they're my hobbies, and I love it and I love sharing it with you guys. So if you want to see more, click the subscribe button, like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye guys.